Popular culture during the 1930s built on trends established in the previous decade. Newspapers, magazines, and especially the radio and movies informed and entertained the public. Inexpensive radio receivers were nearly ubiquitous, helped by New Deal construction of rural electric grids. With the arrival of sound and color, movies became an even more popular escape. Americans traveled less abroad, but streamed into national parks, many of which had cabins and campsites built by the CCC. Trains still carried most long-distance travelers, but flying became more common with the introduction of the first modern passenger plane, the DC-3, in 1937. By 1939, the nation's young airlines had flown 3 million passengers. During the first half of the 1930s, fear of violence gripped the nation. Although overall crime rates did not rise during the Depression, high-profile criminals, especially bank robbers, dominated newspaper headlines. John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Bonnie and Clyde, Machine Gun Kelly, and Ma Barker gained celebrity status. Some gangsters achieved a kind of Robin Hood aura when they gave away some of the money they robbed from banks. At the same time, the public sought reassurance that the forces of law and order would ultimately prevail. Roosevelt sensed that fighting a successful war on crime would enhance public faith in the New Deal's battle against economic hardship. He and Attorney General Homer S. Cummings designated J. Edgar Hoover, head of the Justice Department's Small Bureau of Investigation, to lead the campaign.
I heard something about you today, lawyer.
You did? What?
You're going to be a big G-man.
That's right.
You ought to be dumped in a ditch, stool pigeon. Remember to keep your tin badge in Washington. If you come around here sticking your puss in our affairs, you'll get a belly full of this. Now beat it.
Between 60 and 70 million movie tickets were sold each week, and crime films proved exceedingly popular. Many of the more than 50 gangster movies released in the years 1931 and 32, such as Little Caesar, The Public Enemy, and Scarface, which was Al Capone's favorite, resembled Horatio Alger's stories in reverse. They depicted ruthless and violent men who gained wealth and power by breaking the law. But in 1934, Hoover's so-called G-men killed Dillinger and Nelson. Under government pressure, Hollywood studios adopted a production code that barred the sympathetic portrayal of gangsters. G-Men, released in 1935, followed by 6 FBI-centered films in 1936, featured Hoover's agents as symbols of righteous justice who always got their man. With a boost from Hollywood, the illusory crime wave ended, and Hoover secured his job as FBI director for the next 40 years. Musicals such as 42nd Street and Babes in Arms also found large audiences among a nation that savored an escape from hard times. Debonair dancers Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers charmed movie audiences in films like Top Hat, Flying Down to Rio, The Gay Divorcee, and Swing Time. Comedy films starring the Marx Brothers, the Ritz Brothers, and W.C. Fields, along with cartoons produced by the Disney and Warner Brothers studios, also entertained filmgoers. Child star Shirley Temple, born in 1928, proved the biggest box office draw of the decade. Her dimpled cheeks, curly hair, and spunky innocence drew millions of adoring viewers, old and young, into theaters to watch films such as The Littlest Rebel and Curly Top. Sometimes the plots of these films acknowledged the country's hard times, but their plucky stars had an uncanny ability to triumph over adversity. Americans spent much of their leisure time listening to the radio. Daytime melodramas, called soap operas because of their sponsorship, appealed to women working at home. Late afternoon programs targeted school-aged children. Dinner-time broadcasts provided highlights of the day's news, and evening shows played big band music and original comedy and drama. Broadcasts of baseball games were also very popular. The New York Yankees, with their colorful roster, including Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, seemed almost like a national team. Two of the era's most popular radio shows had ethnic themes. Amos and Andy, a comedy in which white actors depicted two gullible African Americans scheming to strike it rich, was immensely popular. Beginning in 1938 and continuing until 1947, more than 100 CBS radio stations broadcast the weekly performance of a gospel choir group called Wings Over Jordan. Between songs, the show aired interviews with black scholars, educators, and politicians such as Mary McLeod Bethune, Langston Hughes, and Congressman Adam Clayton Powell.
The March of Time!
In this pre-television age, theater owners showed newsreels as well as cartoons before or between feature films. The March of Time, beginning in 1934, contained vivid footage of current events, natural disasters, and celebrity sightings. It also presented to a national audience highlights from popular sporting events such as college football, baseball, and boxing, as well as current fads such as week-long roller derbies and marathon dance contests. Newspapers remained the predominant form of journalism during the 1930s, but they faced great competition from magazines. Reader's Digest became the most widely circulated periodical in the nation by 1938. Newsweeklies such as Time and Newsweek gained large readerships, and Life magazine won acclaim for its stunning photography. In 1934, the Treasury Department funded a one-year public works of arts project that employed nearly 4,000 painters and sculptors who produced more than 15,000 works of art displayed in public buildings. This became a model for the much larger federal arts, music, dance, theater, and writers' projects, all WPA programs created in 1935. The WPA employed thousands of struggling artists to paint murals in public buildings and teach art classes in public schools. 38 symphony orchestras performed free concerts nationwide. The Dance Project hired classical and modern ballet dancers to perform around the country. The Writers Project employed 10,000 people who traveled around the country recording regional music and folk stories, writing local histories and travel guides, and interviewing former slaves for a massive oral history project. They also provoked a backlash when conservative Democrats and Republicans in Congress gained influence during 1939. They denounced these arts programs as left-wing propaganda and cut off funds for the Federal Theater and other cultural projects.